Okay, so it's 3 o'clock. I think we'll get started. My name is Richard Tanabe. I'm the NADP site liaison. If you've called the 1-800 number, you've talked to me. If you sent an email to one of the network email addresses, I've probably been the one that answered you. So we are embarking on this journey of buckets to bags, and it's been a long journey so far, and we're not at the end yet. Just some history for you. NADP started using bags. I'm going to say probably back in 2014, somewhere in there, with one of our networks ended last year, the Airmon network. And it was only, I think at the time, 5 networks. They were doing essentially event-based sampling. So after every event, the operator would go out, they'd collect the sample, put it in the fridge, and then send it to the lab in a cooler with ice packs. So the bag sampling procedures were developed back then with Airmon and kind of with the University of Illinois. There's a sub-network of NTN sites in the Denver area run by Greg Weatherby. And around the same time, 2015-16, he started a study, kind of a transect of the Denver area, and they were mainly urban sites. And he also used the bags, the same bag that Airmon was using to sample for, I believe at the peak, it was 6 sites in the Denver area. There's a network in Canada, the Canadian Air and Precipitation Monitoring Network, and it has been operating since 1985, and it has been using bag sampling since its inception. They actually do daily sampling as well, and so their operators go out to the site every day and collect a sample, whether it was rained or not, and they'll seal their bags with a heat sealer, and they actually send the entire bag in. So we've kind of taken different things from different networks and kind of came up with what we hope is a reasonable approach, and with the equipment we've provided you. The bag sampling in rollout was supposed to happen last year around, well, in the fall. During some of the QA testing of the bags, we noticed some things that weren't quite, people weren't comfortable with in the lab, and so we decided to hold off and investigate some more with the bags that we had at the time. And over time, we actually started trying the bags that the Canadian network used as well. And earlier this spring, we made the switch from the previous bag lots that were used for Airmon and for the subnetwork in NTN to the same manufacturer and material as the Canadian network. So the bags are a little bit different than what we had originally planned for, but we made the best with what we had. So that's kind of a history of the bags, and one of the driving forces of making that switch to the bags is, one, that the bags were a lot cleaner than the buckets. We could ever get the buckets with repeated washing, repeated use. And the other driving force was the shipping. We wanted to get away from shipping buckets around the country. The large NTN supply box with 6 buckets was expensive for site operators. It was expensive for us. And by going to bags, we were able to what we see as considerable cost savings for both the network, the cloud, and the site operators and their funding agencies. So with that, are there any questions kind of just on the history of the bags and anything like that? And we have 46 people online, so don't be shy. Nope. Okay. Well, let's keep moving. So what we decided to do with behind this Zoom call was not so much a training session, but a kind of a more of a Q&A and feedback from yourselves and for other operators to, not often do operators get a chance to engage with other operators. And so this is a new experience for us. We are planning to do more of these type of things in the future. And the plan for next year in 2021 is to do one in February for essentially more geared towards new operators. I see a lot of names here with operators that have been with us a long time. But for the newer operators, kind of a history or a background on what NADP and the program office and the CAL and HAL can provide to you as an operator. And so the first one in February will be scheduled, and it'll be kind of a, equipment-wise, the 1-800 number, sample receipt reports, information like that. That, information gets transferred between operator to operator as either they retire or they leave their positions. And not, I think there's some things that fall through the cracks, and not everyone has, the time or the energy to sit there and read all the SOPs. So again, that will be a similar, Zoom event with, Q&A, and it'll be a brief presentation and then Q&A. But getting on to the bag sampling, for most of you or all of you have either received your supplies and started, or you've received them, or you will receive them this week. And if you have questions on the bag sampling, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I have some questions, and we can kind of go through those. And the questions I've put together are mainly what's come in on the 1-800 number and what's come in through email. So I'll open it up to the floor first if anyone has questions.
Yeah, Richard. I'm Bill Templeton from Forsyth National Wildlife Refuge, NJ00. In our little lab, we have about 10 buckets to finish using up, and we'll be sending back in. We've gotten our materials in. A question I have is that we actually still have one of the old paper drum units sitting in a box in our lab. Should we just send that to you to get rid of the thing?
Paper drum, like the rain gauge?
The rain gauge.
Yeah.
With the paper grid on the turning drum. In
Right,
physiology, we called it a chymograph.
Yeah. No, you can, you don't have to send that to us. You can dispose of it or make a museum or a flower pot or whatever you want out of it. So
I was going to say that this is Smithsonian quality
yeah.
instrument here. Okay. So for our purposes, I guess we'll just not worry about it sitting there, so we don't have to go through the bother of disposing it. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just second deployment into this. I was curious to see if anybody else is having difficulty with getting that bag over the edge of the bucket without contaminating the inside lip of the bag. It seems to be a little challenging.
I see a thumbs up and some shaking heads that agree with you.
And I also must compliment the gentleman from New Jersey who just spoke. It's been a long time since I've ever heard anyone refer to a chymograph.
I'm a retired professor of biology.
And that would be why.
There you go.
Regarding your comment on, yeah, the difficulty of getting the bag. So one of the is, and I guess, is it with the bucket moving around?
No, you had talked to me about that. I haven't tried that yet. It's a tight fit. I guess is the issue. I think more than anything else, it just seems to be kind of a tight fit. And I understand that there's going to be that trade-off between a tight fit and having excess material bunched up around the edge when that's closing, and trying to make sure that there's the best seal possible on the seal pad. But I was just curious if anybody had a better technique than the one described in the instruction.
Anybody?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, this is Jim Davis. I'm from the Okefenokee NWR. If you wonder, I'm sitting in my car because I can't get reception in my office. I'm having the same difficulty getting the bag down over the top of the bucket. And I just was curious as to how you said that the regular buckets were more prone to contamination, but it seems to me that we're putting a square peg in a round hole with the bag, and that there's a lot of danger of contamination that way. Because the bottom of the bag is wider than the bucket, it wants to curl around in the bottom of the bucket, and I can't get a smooth fit into the bucket itself to catch the water. And but I agree that getting the top of the bag over the top of the bucket is very difficult.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Go ahead.
And along the same vein, I guess just how many wrinkles are okay to be in the bottom of because like when I decanted last week, there were a lot of folds, and I didn't know if that was okay. Just really trying to get it to seat in there. I've been having problems.
Yeah.
But down in.
So once you get the bag in the bucket and you get your strap on and you evacuate the air, you should get it should form to the sides of the bucket, and it's not going to stay that way for once you release the vacuum, you will find the bag will start to collapse. But the biggest thing is that the bag has more of a shape of the bucket as opposed to when you first put it in there, and it is all kind of bunched up. So as long as your bag has, some form of a bucket, and, you release your vacuum, you put your plug in, and over the course of the week, it will collapse a bit more. It won't stay as a nice fitted bag in a bucket. So that's not going to impact the sample in itself. But the better it's formed at the bottom, it is, that's what you should strive for.
Is it okay to put your gloved hand down inside the bag and push it so that you work out some of the wrinkles, or is that forbidden because it would contaminate?
Yeah, that you should avoid. So one of the things when you put that bag in, the seams of the bag should, before you apply vacuum, should be lined up with the bucket handle let me, sorry. When you put a bag in, the two seams on the bag should line up with your kind of where the they should line up with the bucket handle. Once you have it in, if you have it the other way where the seam is at the front back, when you apply vacuum to your hole, it won't make a good, it won't draw the bag out because it's kind of, that seam is in the way. So it's best if you have that seam going handle to handle, and then before you try and evacuate the air.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Larry at VA 13. With the bag on the inside having lots of wrinkles and whatnot in it, pouring the sample into the sample bottle. I tried it 2 or 3 times in the last week or two, and it seems that the water will follow the wrinkles, and you won't get it all into the sample bottle. It'll run out to the sides of the bottle or whatever. Do we need a funnel? Or I think some years ago you may have had a funnel for the bucket or for the sample bottle, but with that plastic bag not being real smooth around the bucket itself, it will follow some of the wrinkles, and you can't get it all in the sample bottle.
Right. Yeah. And that, again, it goes back to trying to get, you know, at least the top of the bucket or the bag around in the bucket kind of somewhat flat. And, you know, from my experience, it's just been trying to find, that flat spot, and just, you just got to be careful. And it depends on the volume of your sample. You know, if it's a small volume sample, then, it's just going to take extra care. With the larger volumes, if you do lose some, because it will be harder, it's harder because of the volume, but it'll also be a bit easier because the amount of the volume will tend to pour easier into the bottle. But again, we're going to be susceptible to losing some of the sample as we learn how to do this.
I have a question, Richard.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is Mike Atkinson. I'm from the Prairie Research Institute at the University of Illinois in Champaign. And my question, Richard, has to do with shipping. So for the time being, I'm running into a little bit of difficulty with shipping just due to COVID-19 and coming up here on the holidays. So when I send back the plastic lids, I may have to send those in the same box that I send the coolers for MD in. Do those go to you also, or does that create a huge problem for you?
Nope, that will come, all the samples for both MDN, NTN, AMON all come to the same address. So that is perfectly fine. And if any of you, I didn't even think of that could be an option, because there is room inside those cooler boxes. So if you run a MDN site as well, that's an option for you to ship back your lids as opposed to mailing them back in the poly mailer.
Would it be better if we send a few at a time then, or wait until there's a whole a bunch of them in that bag? And if so, do they need to be in that bag you provided, or can we just throw them back in the Ziplocs and put them in the box?
Amy, I think we can just put them back in the Ziplocs, and I think you can send them in as you use them if you want to. I think so. The plan with the new bag sampling is in the past with the buckets and the large boxes, you did not, if you sent a box in, then we sent you back clean supplies. If you didn't send us a box in, we weren't sending you supplies. So there were times where operators would call, I just used my last bucket or whatever. With the bag sampling, we are tracking that now. When you one, when we shipped it to you, but two, it's important that you indicate when you started on your field form. And the plan moving forward is that we will proactively send you the samples at the 7-week, 8-week mark, I believe. So you shouldn't have to run into issues of not having enough supplies. And ideally, you send the 7 lids back at once and at the 7-week mark, and that again will be more of it's just like a backup trigger for us, that if we get this from you and we check and we haven't shipped you your next set of supplies, then it was just like a backup. So, but the plan is for us to send it to you on a regular basis every 7 to 8 weeks, and it'll be a 9-week supply. So,
well, that's probably what I'm going to do then. Just because I'm having some shipping hassles at the time, I'll probably throw 1 or 2 lids at a time in those boxes back in their Ziploc bags, and I'll send them back to you. And that's also, whenever I have a dry envelope, I'll put it in that cooler as well, because I don't have a postage machine handy for the time being. So as long as that doesn't create hardship, that's what I'm planning on doing.
Nope. And for the dry week envelopes, you can also scan them and email them to us as opposed to mailing it, or you could take a picture of it. As long as the picture is good quality, then you can attach that to an email and send it to us, rather than, if you don't have the means to send it by post. So keep that in
great.
mind.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, Bob.
I have just a couple questions. The site I'm dealing with is 11,000 feet. And so we traditionally, from about November through April, will have snow and sometimes ice in the bottom of the bucket. So I'm concerned about the durability of the plastic bags and leakage through expansion and contraction of ice in the bucket. The negative temperatures, we will deal with negative 20 degrees. Is the plastic of the bag suitable for those conditions? And the second question I have is on the standard operating procedures of reusing the lids back and forth. I think that opens it up more to contamination. I'd prefer to use a clean lid every time I go out to collect instead of using the previous week's lid. So if you could answer those, that'd be great.
Okay. For your first question on the bag quality, so the bags they're a polyethylene with a mylar outer coating. They are fairly robust. The bags, as I mentioned at the beginning, are used in the Canadian network, and they are, they've survived, or they've been able to survive their winters and snow and freezing temperatures with very few issues. So, and I guess I had another question from one of the Colorado sites. It's a high elevation site as well. And they also had concerns about how the bag will hold up, not only in transporting tied, strapped to a backpack on skis, but also for the week while it's out there. And with the higher winds that you'll see at the high elevation sites, how they'll stand up to those. And again, we don't, in the Canadian site they don't have high elevation sites. They do have a number of sites where, wind is an issue. And without the bags, without the bucket strap, you'll come back with no bag in the bucket. But so again, it's one of those things we're going to have to see how things progress over the winter, and and whether we need to recalibrate at some point we'll make that decision. And that goes for the use of the lids. Some of the early sites, we did have an issue. We had an error in our SOP on using the lids. So essentially now it should be, you're going out to this, you're preparing a bucket with a brand new lid. You're going out to your site, that bucket stays, that lid stays with that bucket. The previous week, so essentially if you're going out tomorrow, the lid you have on the bucket will go back into the bag after you deploy it. And then that lid will now be used next week to bring that same bucket back. If at any time you feel that your lids has been compromised or contaminated or whatever, then yeah, for sure, use a new lid. And whether you need to take an extra lid with you to the site, that's fine as well. But then just keep in mind, if you end up having to use another lid, we've provided 10 lids for 9 weeks of samples, and you will get, like we said, you will get your next supply of supplies probably at the 8-week mark. So you should always have a supply of lids. But again, it's something we kind of went back and forth on in terms of how we can make it work, and without providing everybody with 18 lids at a time. So, but I thank you for your comment and your concern about that.
Then an add-on to that is I have 2 buckets and no plastic bags and no new equipment as of today. So
you only received 1 box with the starter, with the buckets and the vacuum?
I have not received a starter kit at all, and I have 2 buckets left from the previous sample.
Okay, I got you. We'll look into that, and we'll because I'm trying to think of when yours went out, but we'll look into that, Bob, and we'll get you enough supplies before and that. So your 2 buckets, that will be tomorrow, will be one of them.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Richard?
Yep.
You just described the bag as being polyethylene with a mylar coating on it. Where I have been recycling our materials, they take high density and low density polyethylene only. That's basically taken to the supermarket and return bags. My guess is that this with the mylar is going to affect recyclability of the bag.
I think it will depend on what your region or area can recycle. I know, again, I keep referring back to the Canadian network, and partly that's because I used to work for the Canadian network. But their lab does recycle. So in the Toronto area, they can recycle the polyethylene mylar bags. So again, yeah, maybe not at your supermarket, but
yeah, our in New Jersey, it varies by county as to what can and cannot be recycled.
Right.
But I know both HD and LDPE are recyclable, but not other plastics.
Right. Okay.
Which is unfortunate. We're going to end up dumping some more plastic in the landfill.
Right.
Yes. I have to bow out of the meeting. We just received notice my wife's brother passed away.
Oh, sorry.
Christina, if you're there, let's touch, Christina's my partner and she's on here. Let's touch bases later with any further information.
Okay, Bill.
Okay. All righty. So
sorry to hear about that.
Yeah. It's been a tough year. This is actually the second brother she's lost.
Oh my
God.
But
I do need to go. But thanks very much for organizing this meeting, and hopefully we'll see more of them.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Take care.
Bye, Bill.
Oh gosh, that's terrible news. I just I was going to jump in and ask Bill about something. This is Amy Mager. I'm the sample and data processing manager for NADP. Just wanted to introduce myself quick. My team is working on getting all of the supplies sent out to you all. So any questions about anything, obviously you can go through Richard, but you can also contact me directly as well. And you can find my email on the NADP website or through Richard. But Christina, I just wanted to check. I may have misunderstood, but I think Bill said that you all have 10 or so buckets to use up at your
Yeah.
site.
So I've still been doing it the old way. So
Okay.
I just wrote to Bill when we were just on here, do we have the supplies? He said that there are supplies there and he was supposed to go tomorrow. So now I don't know if he'll be going or I'll be going. Yeah, so we haven't started using this new system yet.
Okay. Just comment in general for everyone that if you can, as soon as you receive those supplies, if you could switch over to using the new bag sampling method, either the following week or the week after, that would be great from a perspective of our shipping schedule that Richard was talking about earlier, how we want to be sort of more proactively shipping you supplies. And so we know when we've sent them to you, and then if we know that you've started relatively soon after that, that'll just help us track everything into the future. In conjunction with that, marking on your field form that very first week that you start is really an important thing for us to get from you as well. So I understand that, you know, it may take a week or two to kind of wrap your head around it and start it. But if you can start as soon as possible, that would be great.
All right, well, if I go tomorrow, I will do that tomorrow. I will do my best. I will do it tomorrow. And if Bill goes, I think then he'll probably do that. So whoever's there, we'll start tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments, questions?
Richard, backing up a little, back to when we were discussing the difficulties with precipitation hanging up in the folds of the bag. The instructions do call for trying to find the smoothest place within that system to pour out of. And as well, I found last week it helped to kind of tap the corner of the bucket on the counter to shake everything down to one place and then pour. There's still a good bit of precipitation left in that in this new protocol and in the new bag. I'm concerned about times when there's very low amount of precipitation, that it's going to hang up in there somewhere. Is there a cure for that? Do you think it would help to try, in the process of getting that out of there, try to hit that with a vacuum again to flatten things out, to collect it down into one spot? Has anybody worked on that? How to get the precip out of those small folds?
That's a good idea. You could run that vacuum. So you bring it back to the lab or your area, and while it still has the lid on, you could run that vacuum again to kind of pull the bag back to the walls of the bucket, and then again plug it up and then try and remove your lid, and that may help. I haven't tried that, but I think that would be a good idea.
And there was one person, Erica Jones, that made a comment in chat about having difficulty getting that flexible lid on top of the bucket with the folds of the bag now in place. I've been using those flexible lids for, I don't know, a long time now, it seems. And I've found that I have difficulty also, especially if there's a rim of ice. So if we've had freezing rain, which is typical in, I'm in Southeast Kansas, we're kind of in an ice belt, but I have difficulty when I have freezing rime ice on the edge of that bucket, getting those on there. And usually what I'll do is pre-locate the widest edge on that flexible lid, because they're not all formed and cut exactly concentric. So usually there's a lip of that that's a little wider than the other that makes it easier to get hold of that one edge when you're putting those on, taking them off, and that sort of thing. So looking for that may help get that on in situations like that. But that's usually been, I've had a number of times when I've had to put those flexible lids on over rye mice, and it was lots more challenging than putting it on over that bag.
So in the past, Dan, have you used worn gloves when you, like on the old bucket system, or were you using the bag as the glove?
I was using the bag as a glove.
Okay.
And I think some of the early instructions on those flexible lids, you know, maybe I didn't either I misread or didn't read carefully enough, but I've been putting them on the other direction. I've been putting them on starting at the farthest lip away from me and working my way towards myself when I put those on. And so the new protocols, I've been adhering to those, but I don't think it matters. I think a little practice with those is going to be the best solution for situations like that. And I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue to convert to working from the closest edge to the back edge.
No, I think, yeah. And do you still use just the bag, or do you use gloves too?
With the new protocol, I've been using the gloves. So those, they're a vinyl glove, and you can actually grip the edge of that flexible lid. And the gloves that I've been provided in the past have been like food service gloves, the polyethylene or polyvinyl.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they are, but they're those food service gloves are next to impossible to work with those lids, even in the best of situations, because
those are like the lunch lady gloves.
Exactly. Yeah.
The oversized fingers, and
those are nearly impossible to use. I don't know who has fingers that long, but I've never seen anybody's. But anyway, yeah. So I use gloves when necessary, but usually it's not that difficult to deploy that lid with using the bag itself as a glove, and it just kind of goes right on, with the exception of icy situations.
Okay. Yeah. So if you are using what we refer to as the lunch lady gloves, that, you know, the oversized fingers, and you need more of so in all the starter kits, we did place some of the vinyl gloves in the box. And yeah, we find those because you get a better grip. You can, you know, as you're pulling that flexible lid onto the bucket rims, it is a bit easier than the old style where you're just using the bag as the glove, or if you're using the other style of gloves. So if you need more, let us know, and we will get some out to you. With staying on the glove topic, we provided you enough gloves to kind of get you started. And it was more of a kind of a reminder, a trigger that for you guys that, you know, you will need to wear gloves on some of the procedures. Not sure if it was always required in the past. And not knowing what sites have access to gloves and don't have access to gloves, rather than sending all kinds of gloves out that may or may not be used, we kind of put them in there. And if you need more, let us know. The best, you can circle it on your field form, but if you call the 1-800 number, then for sure it'll get actioned right away. And that way, and one of the things I've had a number of comments on, it's using, you know, we're using a lot more gloves with the new procedures. And so one of the things, and it may not happen until post-pandemic, but at the lab, we are now starting to recycle gloves. And so that, you know, that may be something down the road, once we're out of the pandemic, that, you know, you can store your gloves, ship them back. But yeah, some of the things we've been kicking around, just because it has been raised a few times now, that, yeah, we're saving money on shipping buckets around, but we are now, you know, and as well, with the polyethylene mylar bags, we're not sure whether we have locally, if we have the capacity to recycle those, but again, we'll look into it. And that might be something that, inside your poly mailer with your lids, you just fold the bags up, send them back, and we will recycle them if we're able. So something, Christina, you can mention that to Bill at some point.
I will.
I have a comment in the chat from Danielle, New York 93. The vacuum I received doesn't make a good seal around the bucket hole, maybe half centimeter space on each side. So I'm not able to effectively vacuum the air out. You can try. So some of the early vacuums that went out, we did have some issues. So we can either send you a replacement and you can send that one back, or you can try, it's just basically, it's sticky window stripping, and then there's electrical tape around the outside. What you can try is you could take the tape off, and if you have some like super glue or Gorilla Glue, you could just put a couple of dabs on and get that, get the seal, the weather stripping seal kind of further off of so you get a better seal. If you don't want to go through that effort, then let me know, send me an email, and I will get a replacement shipped out to you. And that should take care of that problem. So I hope that answers your question. What else? Okay, any other questions, comments? Really appreciate the feedback we're getting.
Yeah, I've got a question. This is Andrea Blakesley at Denali. I'm wondering, first of all, with the vinyl gloves, could you send out specs and supplier information? And that way, we can order our own, but I know, for example, if I bought powdered gloves versus powder free, that would probably not be a good thing. So anyway, if you could send out glove specs, then some of us could order them ourselves. And then my other question, I guess this is more for Amy. If we're going to get on a routine sample shipping schedule, how far out from first use will you be shipping? Because we're having some receiving issues here with the pandemic.
Well, our plan,
we might want to adjust that. So in other words, if you typically send 2 weeks out, we might ask for 3 or 4 weeks out.
Sure. Get you guys on the schedule a little sooner.
Yeah.
Because it takes longer. Yeah. What we're doing right now is when we get an indication that you have started, that a site has started, then we basically just have a big spreadsheet, and we have a formula in there that is giving us a date that's 7 weeks out from that week that you started, and that's when we would ship out your next set of 9 weeks supply box. But we can certainly adjust that for sites that have known shipping issues and whatnot, and we can bump that back and send out a little earlier. That'd be no problem.
Yeah, it would be great to have that option. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just probably just so nothing gets lost in the shuffle, if you have that, just send an email to the NTN email, call Richard, and then he can get that information to us, and we can make sure we account for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
I had another message come in asking about a video for the SOPs. They are in the works. I hope to have them out hopefully by early next week, and the first two will cover the what I thought was the more challenging parts was the bag preparation and the sample decanting. So once those are out, we'll get them up on the website, and we'll let you know when they're available. Anybody else?
Yeah, one more question. I haven't started yet, so maybe any extra bags for practice that we can maybe label and then use for backup site operator training or getting ourselves familiar with the bag situation?
In the supply box that you'll receive 2 boxes. One's what we call a starter kit. It has 2 modified buckets: the vacuum, the bucket straps, the plugs, some gloves. And then the other box, what we call our supply box, will have the 9 1-liter bottles, 9 1-liter shipping containers, the 10 lids, flexible lids, a pouch with 10 bags, as well as 1 bag that is labeled as a practice bag. And what else is in there? And the poly mailer, I think I said that. So, and there's printed SOPs in those ones as well. As far as practice, what you can, if you have a lot of backup operators, or if you need to use some, then use what you have. But you just keep in mind, you have to let us know so that we can get you enough bags back out to you to make sure you have enough for each week. And the other option is after you use a bag and you've decanted that sample, you can save that bag, and you can use that again especially if it's a dry week, you can use that as a training bag or a practice bag. So
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? You've kind of brought up a lot of the questions I had kind of prepared in case nobody was going to speak. Does anybody have questions about
this? Jim Davis.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Jim Davis from Finoki GA09. I got my first bag bucket deployed this past week. And secondly, is there any recommendation as to when to prepare the bucket to deploy? Can we prepare it the week before so that when we get here, we can just take it out and then prepare the bucket for the next week and let it sit there? Or do we have to prepare that bucket that day?
If you choose to prepare it the week before, the one thing I would say is the next Tuesday before you go out, that you'll need to run the vacuum once again, just to because over the course of the week the bag will start to collapse a bit. So if you're going to prepare it, put the lid on, and then before you go out, just run the vacuum to evacuate the air in there, and then plug it up. But as long as the bag is covered, then you're good if you prepare it.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any questions about the weighing procedures? Given that kind of change, we haven't updated the field form for that. So
I don't have any questions, but after deploying 2 of these, I can tell you that it's easy to forget twice in a row to weigh that before I go out to my site. So I've had to take it back, carefully remove the lid, weigh it, record it, and go back out. That may be my biggest hang up on this whole process.
Okay, so the next time that happens, what you can do is bring it back, weigh it with the lid on, and then just subtract your lid, because all the lids still have weights written on them. So I've had another person ask if they can do that as well, like every time. And I said, yeah, as long as you remember to remove the lid weight, then that's acceptable. So
Well, the problem with doing it after the fact is that all those water droplets and moisture that collect up in the corners of that bag are going to affect the weight of the tear. So the tear is going to be off.
Right.
I mean, I don't see how that would be effective if you're in a site that.
Oh no, this was she was asking before while she's preparing. So if she prepares the bucket, puts the lid on and then waits it. Yeah. So
okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and Dan raised another point. So it's important that when you bring that back, if it is a sample, to try and either, you know, tap the side of the buckets to get any droplets that are on the outside of the bag that are kind of clinging to it, or wipe it down before you weigh it again, because essentially we want just what's in the bag, not what's clinging to the outer rim, the part of the bag that's hanging over the bucket rim. So okay. I think that's I think we've covered quite a bit. So I think one of the things, if you are, depending on where you prepare your bucket, when you're trying to put the bag into the bucket and pull the bag over the rim, if you're on a like a countertop, like a lab countertop that's slippery, it is more difficult because the bag or the bucket tends to move whatever way you're struggling to put that bag on. So if you have a rubber mat or something that you can place the bucket on that will just kind of hold it in place while you put the bag and pull it over the edges, that will help as well. So something to keep in mind. And yeah, so I hope any further questions, comments. I hope this has been helpful. We are recording it, so because we had a few people say they couldn't make it. So we will make it available. And then we are planning to do another one in January, kind of for the next rollout of sites. And again, the email will go out, and yeah, if you want, you can join in that one. By then, you guys will all be old hands at it. So we would appreciate any further feedback you can provide. But either give us a call, 1-800-952-7353, or send an email to NTN. Yeah, we'll keep working together to make this work for everybody. So appreciate you all taking the time today to join us. And I just got one more comment here, and let me just see before so extra buckets from yours, we just keep those. So the question was, if we have extra buckets from the old method, should we just keep those? Depending on how many you have, you can send back the box with all your extra lids and bottles. And if you need a return shipping label, we can provide that. Otherwise, essentially send what fits in one box, and then whatever else you can recycle or so. Otherwise, that's all we have. Anything further, Amy?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about sending the supplies back. Lids, especially any flids that you have on site, those we could really use those back to get washed up and back into circulation. But like Richard said, if you have 8 buckets on hand and you just put 6 in the box and keep those other 2 buckets for something you can use at home or give them to a friend or whatever. But yeah, lids we definitely would want back. Same with bottles as well, bottles that you haven't used. We'd like to get those back and get them back into circulation. That's about it.
Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody.
So that Does the supply box go back? The supply box never goes back. So as we're getting those supplies, the bottles, the boxes, the extra bags and whatever supplies we need, gloves, that sort of thing, that box stays with us then to recycle or reuse, correct?
Correct.
All right.
All right. Thank you.